What up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Bruh Meets World.
When it's Bruh Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. I'm Siege.
And I'm your boy, TC.
All right, Tonathy, we have guests today.
Yes, we are doing a very special crossover episode with the guys from Timm Talk. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, hello.
Hello.
By the way, your guys' intro is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so embarrassed by it.
So, why would you be embarrassed by it? It's amazing. It's so much better than our very, just stiff, stodgy, boring, hello, welcome to another episode.
Well, there's
So
a lot
much
of
better.
singing involved, so.
This is why we don't do that, though. I cannot sing, can't speak for Cameron. Actually, I'm going to speak for Cameron. He can't sing either. Thank you. Yeah, you guys are much better. But yeah, I'm Chris from Timm Talk. For those of you who don't know, we're a podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm, thus the name.
And I'm Cameron Dexter. I am the other half of Timm Talk. I am the one who doesn't know what's going on most of the time.
Well, that's a departure from us, who regularly doesn't know what's going on.
Okay, good. I'm with like-minded folk. Good, this is
I
great.
just think it's funny because you were like, Timm Talk, and you explained everything about it, and TC and I are like, who wrote this episode?
Yeah,
That's
it's
fine.
more of just like what we think of stuff because we do very limited research on these Boy Meets World episodes, as our fans know. But
Well, ours is easy because we named our podcast after the guy who does most of the stuff on the DC universe.
Yeah.
So Bruce Timm, made, writes. I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking
It made it a lot easier for us.
fantastic. A lot of our comments are like, did you guys even Google? If you would have done a simple search, you would have gotten this answer. We're like,
That's a lot of work sometimes. Anyone who records a podcast know these things get slapped together at the last minute.
Absolutely.
And you always sit down and go, oh, I didn't do any research on this. That's very much the case for me today, talking about SpiderVerse. I know quite a bit about Spider-Man, just broadly speaking, but I did not look up any trivia or research any of the comics or anything like that. I'm just going in, just blindly going oh, this was fun.
I have some movie trivia, but
Oh.
that's pretty much. So I will say that Chris kind of brought up what this episode is about. We're doing this crossover episode because we wanted to talk about Into the Spider-Verse.
Spiderman into the Spiderverse.
Spiderman.
Yes.
which I just want to say, just throwing out there, maybe my favorite animated film I've seen in a very long time.
Oh, I'm going to hand off to Cameron for that.
I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about this already on our podcast. I adore this movie so much. It's such a revolution for animation. And
Absolutely.
seeing it we've had a blend of kind of 3D and 2D since the 90s. I mean, Tarzan was kind of the first major film to bring in 3D animation with 2D laid on top of it. But this film brings it to such another level where it's creative, it's unique, it's just beautiful. It's a work of art.
Is an actual that's definitely the word, because rewatching it, I was like, this just scenes feel like any still, or if you pause the movie at any point in time, it could be a masterpiece that you would throw on your wall.
Oh, yeah, it's an art piece. Have you guys tried to pitch this movie to people who aren't comic book fans?
100%.
I've tried so hard. I'm just look, I know this is not your thing. I know you're not into cartoons or Spider-Man or dimension hopping or whatever thing you want to talk about, but from a visual perspective, nothing's ever been made like this before. Go see it for that alone. It's
Yes.
groundbreaking.
I was thinking of it as a celebration of animation. Where you have all
I like
these
that, yeah.
different kinds of animation that are so beautifully kind of mixed together in these really untraditional ways, but in a way that makes sense with the story. It doesn't feel like anything's just thrown in there just because. It all feels very organic. And I remember me and Siege, when we were watching it afterwards, we were like, you could pause any part of this movie and it would be a beautiful screensaver.
My screensaver is actually now several versions. I have several different computers, a work computer, and all. They're all just rips of this movie.
So which are they specific characters? Or which points did you go for?
It's Miles Morales.
Okay.
And it's just him in different poses. But I searched a long time for scenes, because the most famous one is the one they even use on the poster, where it's the upside down version of him jumping off the skyscraper, and there's the city line, but it's reversed, and it's a beautiful
so
shot.
that was actually taken from another short, which it has a similar look, but it's all 2D. And I don't remember the name of the short exactly, but it came out around 2014. It's a minute long, and it's about like having the strength to lift the earth. And it's a guy on top of a building, and he does a handstand, but they flip the canvas. So it looks, instead of him pushing up, it's the world moving up and him staying stationary. It's cool to see that come like into film, because that's just some small no-name who might have actually like gotten a job because of that, and it worked on the film.
Yeah.
You know, I did not know that. And when I saw the image of him kind of falling in New York being upside down, I thought it was more of a, hey, this is a different version of Spider-Man than you know. Like, we're actually turning Spider-Man on its head and giving you something different. I didn't realize that it had this like unique origin, but however I interpreted it, I feel like was like gave me a better understanding of what they were going to do with the movie.
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting because I feel like you're constantly being reminded that this is a different interpretation.
This isn't your daddy's Spider-Man.
Yeah, this isn't your daddy's Spider-Man. Well, what's funny is
daddy's Spider-Man is old, divorced, fat.
Exactly. I love how they bring that character in, Peter B. Parker, because he is your dad's Spider-Man. He's everything that we've known, and like almost immediately, I think I realized in the first half of the movie, he goes, I'm Spider-Man and I'm the only one, and immediately they transition into Miles, and you get like this different vibe, this different rhythm, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Also worth noting, the first Spider-Man we meet is basically in it through none of the rest of the movie, which is like, I guess he's just normally Peter Parker. I was listening to their podcast, they kept referring to him as Peter A. Parker in contrast to Peter B. Parker, but also Chris Pine. Perfect casting
100%.
for that.
So I was going to talk about that because talking about little trivia bits, Chris Pine rounds out all the Chris's as being a superhero.
This is true.
On a Marvel property, because each other ones of the famous Chris has been a superhero besides Pine.
What about Walken?
Wait,
He's
I
a
feel like
Christopher.
Walken.
He's a Christopher. It's different.
He is a Christopher.
All
which
right,
is very, very
all
different.
right.
Well, we're waiting for that Chris Rock superhero movie.
Oh yeah, well yeah, Chris O'Donnell. That's true. We got that. I would love
All
to
right,
see
let's all admit-
who could Chris Rock be? Ooh.
Chris Rock.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, maybe Blank Man in the 90s, but we've passed this time.
I'm just gonna go on a crazy limb. I'd love to see Chris Rock as Lex Luthor.
Ooh. You look the whole room was at ooh.
I could see him
here
be
for it,
just like the meanest Plastic Man. Do you guys know Plastic Man?
I do,
Okay.
but only through your podcast and Chris.
Okay.
That's the one reason why.
Yeah.
I could see him being thrown into like a Black Panther cameo. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Like nothing. Like I honestly, there's not a single superhero that I would identify with Chris Rock. But if we're talking animation and his voice talent, that's a completely different situation.
Yeah, but now I'm
What's
thinking
a
of like
zebra?
you really you really just like changed it. Like, what's the one Batman the Animated Series one with the puppet?
Oh yeah, Scarface and the ventriloquist.
Yeah, I could just see that. I could see him doing that.
That would be the most like foul-mouthed Scarface ever, and I would love it. I think that would make it so much more entertaining. Like DC has got so weird in their movies. I'm like, just embrace it now. Like,
I
go
was like,
really
imagine
weird.
if they did that, you'd be like, I am so surprised, but I definitely want to see where this
But
goes.
I'm down for it.
How do we feel about the Riddler? He's got kind of the physique for a Riddler.
He could be
Just-
Sure,
yeah.
definitely.
Because he like the meaner version of Riddler is Creeper, but he doesn't have like the movement of a Creeper.
Yeah.
I would imagine him being in some kind of new interpretation of the Riddler, but more of like Suicide Squad like situation, more than like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. So similar to how they Assault on Arkham, where Riddler was kind of playing a background character.
Sure.
I think he could be there, where he's just there to taunt everyone and just make them feel like shit the
I'm
whole
actually
time they're there.
Really, really enjoying this idea of like Chris Rock. As
Chris
the
Rock's
Riddler.
people.
Yeah.
I hope you're listening because we're giving you tons of gold.
And so I think to tie it back to Marvel, if we had to cast him somewhere there, Professor X.
Yes.
Really?
Ooh.
I don't know. I just think it'd be entertaining. Just a completely different version. We've done Patrick Stewart let's do something entirely different. Also, I don't know that many Marvel characters. I'm like, let's just pick one that people recognize.
If we're going back to Marvel, let's go to the ones that I have like a handful of knowledge. Yeah.
I mean, talking about Black Panther, I think it'd just be hilarious if he was just Chris Rock, and like T'Challa is trying to learn about other cultures to help out more, and he's like, "Who is this comedian? Can we get him here?"
Yeah, he's like T'Challa's tour guide through the United States.
Yeah. I'm loving this idea.
I'm so down for it.
To back to your point about Peter A. Parker, a question I had throughout the movie was, is this supposed to be the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
No.
And I realized that wasn't the case because I actually found an article where the directors were asked flat out about this, and according to io9.gizmodo.com.
I love IO9. One of my faves.
Miller basically told them that, like, you know, everything was kind of thrown on the table and discussed, but really every Spider-Man could exist in their own universe in this multi-universe. So yes, there is a universe where Peter Parker is Tobey Maguire, and there's a universe where Tom Holland is Tobey Maguire, and so forth and so forth.
Well, I mean, even at the end of Venom, it says in another universe, which means Venom technically could connect to the Spider-Verse.
Right. You're going to have to hold your disdain for Venom while we talk about...
Bite your tongue. Yeah.
I just hope that in that other universe, Topher Grace is Venom.
So kind of on the note of Peter Parker, he's supposed to embody the perfect version of Spider-Man, where everything is going his way. He's saved the city. Everyone loves him. He's married to his dream girl. Like, nothing has gone wrong for him. And then when we introduce Peter B. Parker, we see the more realistic side of being a superhero, where like you want to like, I think the funniest thing, which is kind of thrown in there, is he tries to open his own Spider-Man restaurant. It's like TGI Spidey's. And I think that's like that is something that would happen in real life. It's a Spider-Man who wants to kind of profit off being Spider-Man in his own way, and he's like, how can I do that? Investments, use my name, and all of that kind of failing him. Yeah. And
what I really noticed during the second watch was, especially in this alternate universe, as you said, our generation loves realism, and you have this one where he was like, yeah, so I was working out, and it just kind of like shows him, and he was like, I was doing crunches, and I was handling it really well, and it just shows him like crying in the shower. Yeah. And I don't know what it is about our generation, but we're like, yes.
we can relate to, well, it could be like one of the, I think the best things about this movie is this theme of like anyone can be a superhero, including those people with dad bods. Yeah, now exactly. There's finally the dad bod superhero. Not everyone can be Chris Hemsworth ripped.
Exactly. As Chris Pratt always likes to remind us.
Yes. Also, I recently heard the 4 hot actor Chris's referred to as the christening of Hollywood.
Oh my god, I hate that, but I love it.
It's so good.
I've told you about the Chris's, right?
No.
There's a fake movie going on or there's a fake movie script going around on the internet called The Chris's, where it's the 4 Chris's in a crisis, directed by Chris Nolan.
Oh my god!
Where
things I've never wanted
where Chris
more.
Walken is the main villain, and there was one other Chris in there, but it's all just like it's a whole cast of both on screen and production. This is just Chris.
I love
in
it.
production.
Hey, you just
It's like Grit Boy 1, Chris Roy.
grab Chris Miller, one of the producers of this. Right there, you go.
Absolutely.
We have a writer for this.
I love it.
Now.
I think that this is great, and it's like one of those things that I believe the internet could get done.
Yeah. Also, maybe I could get a job. If they're only staffing Chris's, I think I have a really good bet on this one.
So, and what's really
Most extreme form of discrimination.
Exactly.
What makes me sad is it does not limit their pool at all.
No, it could be anybody. Anyone could be a Chris.
So many Chris's in this town.
One of the cool things I thought that this movie did was that this was the first time we saw Spider-Man outside of being a child, or interpreted as being a child, which I think kind of goes back to your point of like seeing these realistic Spider-Man with the gut is that we've never seen Spider-Man in his 30s before, which I thought was kind of interesting to see him in the mentor position versus like in Avengers where he's being mentored too. I thought that was a real interesting thing to see.
I so love that you brought that up because one of my notes was the mentor-mentee relationship that Peter B. Parker has with Miles, and even Peter's enthusiasm for the role, him being like, I'm so used. He's like, everyone else I work with is trying to kill me. This is
right.
Such a nice change of pace.
This is lovely. Oh my god, I'm cool with this.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, on a second viewing, I really picked up on the fact that when Peter A. Parker, as we're going to call him, was dying, he's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll show you the ropes, we'll make it all work. And then the fact that that Miles gets saddled with this other version, what a disappointment.
Yeah.
That would be, but it forces Miles to like have to be his own hero because the one he looks up to isn't really going to do it for him.
Which is funny because you were like, this Peter has everything going for him. And it was like, and he dies. So like,
and he does, yeah. If you have everything
he dies
going,
like almost immediately.
Well, and Cameron, you had a really interesting point about how all the different Spider people in this kind of represent a different aspect of Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's. I think I don't know if they intentionally did it this way, but. Outside of the main three, outside of Peter B., Miles, and Gwen, Penny Parker, Spider-Noir, and Spider-Ham all kind of encompass the three aspects that make Spider-Man. You have the detective in Noir, you have the tech of Peter Parker and Penny Parker, and you have the witty comedic side of Spider-Man in Spider-Ham.
And Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, and then Spider-Gwen... If we include her, I see her as the poise and precision of swinging in the city. Of like that's such a big component of Spider-Man.
Absolutely,
that she's perfectly encompasses.
And that's actually when we first see her as Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman is like when he's teaching Miles how to like swing.
It really is. It really is.
And then like they fail.
Well, because when. Cameron, you had mentioned that theory to me before, so when I went to go watch it a second time, I noticed that when they're down in the spider cave, the amazing spider cave they have down there, when they're each asking, can you do these things, it's like Spider-Man Noir is like, oh, can you fight? Which, like, that's the kind of thing he represents. And then Penny's like, oh, can you, like, get shot at and, like, reprogram a computer? And Spider-Gwen, it's easier to recognize it that way. She's like, oh, well, can you, like, do a triple... Lutz, I think, is on ice. I don't know how these things work. I'm not a gymnast. I'm not an athlete at all.
Are you not?
I'm a reader.
Nick Cage has a great line there where he goes, can you close yourself off to the moral ambiguity of your violent actions or something like that? I was still at Siege. I was like, you know what? Upon second viewing, I think Nick Cage has funnier lines than John Mulaney. I think John Mulaney's delivery is much funnier, but Nick Cage has great one-liners throughout the film.
And we talked about this, and I think that's because I said comedy is like the divergence from expectations. So Spider-Ham, like the concept in itself is funny, and every like the little bits of like this animated Looney Tunes type thing in this world is hilarious, and they constantly play on that. But Noir Spider-Man is funny because what he says, he's so different in general, and as you said, his world is gritty and full of crime. So like when later on he's just fascinated with the Rubik's Cube, and he's like, "This is purple, right?" And they're like, "No, you're way off."
Well, so I think that plays a lot into the age range of the film. So on my third viewing, I went to see it with my stepdad and my nephew, which are the opposite end of the spectrum. My stepdad hates everything he sees, but he loved this movie, and he didn't stop talking about it the entire time. I was in Denver with my family, which was it's so warm to me seeing him like care about something. But he's 70 and my nephew is 7, so it's literally the whole spectrum. And it's that exact point. It's we can connect to Peter B. Parker and Spider Noir, but then when Spider-Ham comes on, my nephew was just cracking up the whole time because like he got those jokes. It's the Simpsons layering where you have the kid joke layered into the adult joke so everyone can enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit about Miles Morales?
Yes, let's do this. All right, so one thing on that note, one of the reasons why TC and I were like adamant about doing this episode with you is this is one of the blackest movies ever. It is so beautifully black.
For people who they can't see us through the screen, Chris and I seem to be white because we are white.
I'm wearing a Henley.
Yes, so I'm very,
our podcast very, very white.
on the fact that we're black guys watching a very white show. So like that's inherent, but
I will also say that I have a black father and a Spanish mother.
Oh, nice. Okay.
To really see like and. Over Christmas, I have a family Facebook page, and people are always posting pictures of what their kids are doing, whatever. And, I have a really multicultural family, and they all took their kids to go see this movie over the holidays. And, like, my nephews look like Miles.
Yeah.
And, like, for them, I was just so happy that they had something to identify with. We say on our podcast all the time, you can't be what you can't see. And it was really great for these kids to be able to have like something where they're like, oh, I can be this for Halloween and I don't need to explain what I am, or I don't need to be the black version of Superman. I can just be Miles. And that was just a really cool moment.
Yeah, there was a really awesome interview. I don't know if you guys watched this one in your research, where they're interviewing Miller, and he's talking about getting the language precise between his mother and him, where she is a first generation. She's a first-generation Spanish speaker, and he's second-generation. So the way they communicate, she has a very authentic accent, where his is very an Americanized accent, where he slips into English a lot more than she does.
Yeah.
And she speaks Spanish pretty much the entire film.
Yeah, for the most part, she does.
And with no subtitles. So I thought it was such a great... And they even talked about...
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's, again, talking about this being a very black movie, a lot of the things are even subtle cues. Like there's, TC and I talked about this, there's this reaction, it's a facial reaction. And like when you're black, a lot of your communication skills are in fact like through your face and it's nonverbal cues. And there's a facial reaction when Peter B. Parker is like trying to negotiate or telling Miles that he can't do something, and Miles just like looks away, and he like, it's something I was like, it's so authentically black. It's like just such a thing that a person of color had to be in the room in order to even express that that's what you would do.
I was just gonna say too that he was the most realistic kid.
Yes.
Period. But realistic kid of color that I have seen, even in live action films, in a very, very long time. His demeanor, the way he talked, his look, he looked like an actual kid. He didn't look like, if they were doing a live action version of this with like Jaden Smith as Spider-Man, like it wouldn't have had that universal appeal, I think, that this one had.
Yeah, because he is very authentically a kid. Like he has that perfect level of awkwardness. Like he's trying so hard to be cool, but it's not working, so he just feels really kind of awkward. And we were talking recently about the movie 8th Grade. Oh yeah, like the shoulder touch, right? He tries so hard to be cool and messing it up, and just like even his kind of inner monologue, and especially the opening when that's paired with like the text on screen, all the thoughts that he was like, why am I saying this so loud right now? It's like that weird sort of inner monologue that you especially had at that age. It felt exactly very, very authentic.
I'm glad you brought up 8th Grade, because I actually thought about that when that scene where he's like, he just had pulled out Gwen's hair and he's walking through the hallway and he's like, everyone knows. And I actually thought about that scene in 8th Grade where she's walking out to the pool party. Had a very similar, just like everyone's thinking about this, which is such a middle schooler, like everyone's thinking about me and what I've done kind of concept.
Exactly. Well, so a little thing that I think is really important, again, and it's very much an adult joke, but Spider-Man is very often a story about puberty. It's about your body changing in a radical way, and you're thrust with all this responsibility. But kind of like an adult joke hidden in that is when he gets his hand stuck in Gwen's hair, hairy palms. He has this hairy palm
my God, I didn't
that he just looks down on right after his first interaction with Gwen. And it's like, it's a small adult joke that, again, you have to like know what hairy palms means. That's like right there.
My God, did not even think about
exactly.
I didn't even think about the fact they snuck in a fantastic subtle masturbation joke right there. And that just makes me that much happier.
But again,
Holy shit.
after that is when he has this, everyone knows. He has like this guilt trip, and he's like running through, everyone knows what I've done, everyone can see it, why am I sweating? And everyone knows that you are looking weird because you're reacting to something that no one else can see.
Yeah, because you're externally reacting to your own inner monologue, and everyone's looking at you like, "What is this kid
Yeah.
doing? What is going on here?"
Exactly.
No, I think he's like just one of the best characters we had in film this year. He's so fantastic. He's so interesting.
One of the things I really identified with him too, that I'm sure a lot of other people did, was just that like in his free time, he's just listening to music and drawing on his notepad. And I was just like, that's what I did when I was in 8th grade or whatever it was. I was listening to music, I was drawing. I just felt it was such like they gave him hobbies. They gave him things that like kind of layered him and kind of made him more of a character than I would say the Peter Parker that I've seen in Sam Raimi's or some of the other ones, just by giving him these things outside of being a student that kind of he had to relate to the audience
I think it's
with.
really funny because like when Peter Parker tells him to relax, he's like, dude, you got to relax. What do you do to relax? Any other
yes.
movie you would have seen like something else or like taking
a
deep
breathing.
breath.
Yeah.
But he's just like, and it's like this comedic moment. But as you said, it's like, that's what I do to relax.
Yeah, the film it does a really good job of straying away from the tropes.
Yes.
And one of my favorite things that this movie does, in comparison to other films and TV that have tried to do it, is they don't expect the audience to be dumb. They expect the audience to have some level of knowledge, to the point where their explanation of the multiverse was in the fucking background of another scene happening.
Yeah, that's
they
a very good
explain the
point.
multiverse while he's talking to Gwen for the first time, and like, yeah, we don't need to understand it. We're gonna get it through visually. We're gonna understand what's happening. You don't have to stop the movie, pull out a chalkboard, and be like, okay, so we're this line, and then that Spider-Man, he's at this line, and that Spider-Man, he's this line. So all of these lines we twisted, and now we got to untwist. Like, no, we understand that.
Well, not only that, but like in my opinion, I think one of the problems with a franchise that's constantly rebooted is when they try to, especially like when it's been rebooted like 4 times in like the last
This
10
millennium,
years.
yeah.
It's like when they try to do it and they give you like the entry or the 101 that takes up half the movie, and you're like, we know this. So like when I think it's Justice League or I don't know, one of the worst Batmans, when they're like they do the whole Batman movie parents dying
Oh,
scene.
that
You're
would
like,
be
we know
Batman v
this.
Superman: Dawn of Justice,
Exactly.
when Thomas and Martha Wayne yet again get their faces shot. Like, she
Exactly.
literally got her face shot. It was,
And we're like,
what is happening?
We know this. So this movie does it differently because I remembered very poignantly being like, oh, we're skipping over the whole Uncle Ben scene. I don't need that. I know this.
That was my main complaint with Amazing Spider-Man, the first one that came out, was that I was like, oh, I had seen the first half of this movie in a way more interesting way 10 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
With wrestlers.
Yeah.
Which always makes it more interesting. But in the past year and a half, we've definitely had, like, people get Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so when Homecoming came out, we didn't get an origin story, which was great. When this movie came out, we didn't get an origin story. We kind of had an origin story. They kind of parodied the origin story.
Yeah. You
'Cause
know this.
everyone,
Let's do this one more time.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I lost my uncle, I lost my best friend, and you just lost your uncle, and that's how it's going to happen.
So that's what actually, and I want to talk about the uncle because that for me was a moment where I was like, damn it, they still did it. They still gave us the death of the uncle, and I was not expecting that. And you did it in a way where it's like it shocked me and it made me care about something that I've seen a million times.
Well, and I think it's a reflection of how just Miles in general, and I haven't read those comics, although I really want to. I read Ultimate Spider-Man way back in the day when it first started, and I didn't follow through to the point where it switched over. But what I liked about the fact is he also has an uncle die, but it also feels like a much more modern story because the character is much more multidimensional. It's like Uncle Ben was always like the best person ever, and like Uncle Aaron in this is super flawed. Like he's a fantastic uncle, but then like there's that fractured relationship with the dad too, which I think is really interesting. And so the idea is like, yeah, your uncle also dies, but he also is a villain, but we also spend time with him. He's a good guy. We like him. And to give it that much texture and depth made it way more interesting. Like, because we got the Uncle Ben moment, and like I think it was still the Cliff Robertson, Sam Raimi like audio when we like Peter A. Parker touches on it. But I thought that was a much more emotionally impactful, interesting way to handle that story.
I actually took that same note at that Uncle Aaron dies at like the hour mark of the movie or something like that. It's not something that happens in the beginning. Like you get him hanging out with Miles, you understand his relationship with Miles's father, and then you also have this really hyper emotional action scene that happens right at his death, where there's all these revelations and all these like crazy family conflicts coming into light right as he dies. So it kind of gives it that much more meaning. When you see Miles' dad find his dead estranged brother with Miles at the foot of his body, and you're just like, what does this mean? Like, that is such an interesting scene.
It's a fucking Greek tragedy over here.
Yeah,
Well,
100%.
I think that a thing that's great about this is we all talked about like the truth in Miles' youth in this movie. I noticed that they let him be a kid. They let him be overwhelmed by the things that are happening to him. Very often, again, you just have to step up. You have to be the hero or have to deal with things. But I mean, let's take the first interaction with Spider-Man that he happens. He's like, I should go help. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to shrink back here. And yeah, I liked that his whole arc, you know, it was a leap of faith. At the end of the day, it was believing in yourself, which I think it's just amazing. And that payoff moment when he finally like puts on the suit and he's waiting on the building when he jumps off, and just the music in that scene too is incredible.
We have to talk about the music of this movie.
It's so
the music
good.
of this movie is, again, it just ties back into what I was saying. It was just like, it's such a black movie and it's so beautifully black. But also we talked about like they use music so perfectly. Like there's like is it like a piano or whatever? But there's like this
whenever the prowler is on,
Prowler.
whatever that sound is,
Whatever it is,
it becomes like a leitmotif to the movie too. Like it pops up in places even when he's not in the suit. It's like, oh,
that's what I'm saying. And then, so what's crazy is like there's like all this tension when he's in his uncle's apartment, and they're constantly just hitting on that note, and you're tense because you're like, the Prowler's in the room, he's gonna see him, and then when the uncle removes his mask, they also do that again, and you're like, oh, they've constantly been telling us.
Yeah.
But it's just
and
like
Miles's reaction is, for an animated film, I was like, that was like seeing Simba see his dad. Like I was like, oh, I feel everything you're feeling right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of emotional gut punches in this movie. Like that
definitely.
moment, for me, one when Aaron dies, but especially when the dad sees it. When like his dad sees his brother on the ground, and like you can tell how fractured the relationship is. Like 5 minutes before that, he's on the phone. It's like, I wouldn't call unless it was important.
Yeah,
just that little note sets up how estranged they are, and the way he reacts it's really, really sad. And then kind of on the opposite end of that, Miles' final speech about anyone can be a hero. It's just like, I'm like looking around, like, is anyone else?
No, I cried.
Cheering
We
up
cried,
in this movie.
I cried because, for me, I cried because there were several scenes. I think you talked about the one where it's like when they're in the spider cave and Miles looks up and his reflections on the suit.
Yeah.
And they do it in a way that what's interesting is like they don't impose his face over the suit like they usually would do, but he's still like, he's seeing that he can be. And then at the end when he's like, what I took away from it, and I was like, they're literally telling you this is a superhero movie that's saying you're not limited by the, I don't know, expectations of Superman is white and Batman is white, all this other stuff.
Like every other character.
Yeah, like every other character. It's like a woman can be Gwen. It's like females can be, Asians can be, like anyone can be.
Pigs, yes.
Anyone can be Spider-Man, and it literally made my heart swell because it's like as TC said, to actually see that on film, to actually see something say, no, literally, even you can have a part of this lore. Made me feel special, and
Can I just rewind real fast? That moment where he looks up and he sees the reflection of his face on the Spider-Man costume, I couldn't help but notice that the animation made him look a lot like Donald Glover, and I don't know if that was intentional or not.
Interesting.
But in the reflection, I was like, his face looks just like Donald's in that quick moment, which is a throwback to Donald for Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man.
When we first meet Uncle Aaron, Community is playing, and it's the episode.
Is it?
Really?
It's the episode
What?
where Donald
Oh my
Glover
God.
wears the Spider T-shirt.
I did not realize that.
I did not recognize that. I mean, it goes to show how many really fun little Easter eggs are thrown in there.
absolutely.
My personal favorite is when Gwen lands in Times Square. In the background, there's a poster for Clone College.
Yes.
Because I loved Clone High in high school. That was my friends and I. That was our show. Like, I will still throw out Clone High references. No one gets them, but I'm going to stand behind them.
So I keep bringing this up, but it's really important. Times Square is such an important location in this movie because what it shows you is in this multiverse or in this version of the universe, black is the norm. Or like,
yeah, we both got the vibe that racism in this one was not as big of a deal. Even in his prep school, there was so much diversity in there. I don't know
well,
if you
what's
noticed.
interesting is it's called Planet Inglewood. That was like what I noticed.
Oh, I didn't even
It's
catch
Planet
that.
Inglewood is the
Planet Hollywood
the
alternative.
Planet
Yeah.
Hollywood alternative in this one. So that is what made me start looking at things. And then when Peter B. Parker's, it's Coca-Cola. In this, it's cola or Coca soda or something like that. But it changes from a white model to a black model in this universe. And there are like all these subtle clues in the background that show
shit.
you that diversity is way more of a norm in this universe. And again, it was a beautiful thing to see because it's like, what would that world look like now?
Yeah, but then on the other side, the two main billboard advertisements were the whitest
Yeah,
of the actors and characters. It was the Seth Rogen ad, and then it was Hi Hello, which is John Mulaney's, the parody of John Mulaney's Broadway show.
hello.
We said
Hello.
diversity. You can't. You know,
The other thing,
You got to counteract with the whitest you can get.
yeah.
I spotted a few other things in that Times Square scene. The Hi Hello, also From Dusk Till Shaun, Shaun of the Dead remake, I guess,
Well,
or reboot.
no, that was actually supposed to be the sequel to Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, so it actually came out in this universe.
Yes, yeah.
Also, Peekaboo as a Snapchat replacement was one of them, and Baby Shower with the cast of Bridesmaids.
Yeah, I did see that. I did see that as well. Yeah. These are all really fun. As you said, really fun Easter eggs that he showed. But I think for me, it goes back to what this movie was trying to do, which is always challenge your expectations, which I think is another great point of that is Doc Ock. Because what I said to TC when I first watched it is this movie does not judge you for your expectations. It always says that we're going along this ride too. So when he's looking from afar and he's like, no, the woman is the one in charge, and he goes, oh, challenge my expectations,
Yeah.
And then 5 seconds later they reveal that she's Doc Ock. Immediately they're like, oh, we just did that, so you don't feel as bad because we just pointed out that
is one of the coolest reveals in the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Because I forgot until the second viewing that she is the doctor, or she's the scientist explaining the multiverse in the background, which makes sense because that's literally what she's studying.
Yeah.
And so it says Dr. Olivia, right? But then her last name is cut off by Miles when he's up in the front. I also noticed this time that she has octagonal glasses.
Oh, wow.
Which that was very, very clever, very subtle. But yeah, like even when she meets Spider-Man, like when she meets Peter B. Parker, like, oh, like she's on board. She seems like the cool one. She's a reasonable, rational one. Oh wait, no, she's fucking Doc Ock. And like that is a really cool way of doing the Doc Ock arms too. Like I don't know if it's air or water or what's going on inside the tubes, but it's completely different. Totally surprising. And even like Aunt May too. They do a cool twist in that where they show up at the house and we think she's going to be like overwhelmed by this. She's like, oh no, there's a shitload more. And then it's also, she designed all that gadget. She built the web
like
shooters.
The Alfred of the...
Yeah, she's like the Alfred, even like the Q almost. Like she
She's
builds the stuff.
Also trying to get back on Tinder, have a good time, which I thought was like a really nice little...
yeah, that was good
May's trying to
too.
get her groove back.
Exactly.
I'd watch that film.
Aunt May's New Groove.
Yeah.
Also voiced by David Spade.
Oh,
weirdly
yeah,
enough.
there you go.
Kind of going back to the Easter egg thing. I feel like animated film specifically, they're really embracing the fact that like they know fans and they know fans are crazy and they care about this shit. And we're gonna keep it in frame we're gonna keep it on screen for 3 frames. Someone's gonna find it and they're gonna fucking love it.
Absolutely.
Because I bring it up with Teen Titans Go before because that was like another movie that blew me out of the water expectations wise, where they hid things in that movie for single frames that you can only see if you basically pause the movie. One of my favorite ones is in the background when they're walking through the movie. Have you guys seen Teen Titans Go to the Movies?
I haven't seen it.
I have not.
I want to.
Okay.
I really.
If you're any level of DC fan, I highly recommend it, because like you don't have to watch the animated show to get it. But one of my favorite inside jokes they have is they're walking through a movie theater and there's a poster for a Superman film in the background, and every time they cut away, they add or remove a mustache. And it'll only be there for like a second. Like if you don't look that, you won't even notice it. And then when it cuts back, it won't be there. And that's one of the funniest things that only fans will get that joke.
So what's interesting for me is that I felt that way about Brooklyn in this movie. Like, having lived in Brooklyn, has anyone else lived in New York? Or
Nope.
I will say that. So one of the things my best friend Umit and I, we were watching it together when TC and I watched it, and he was like, dude, do you notice they have green cabs? And green cabs are specific to Brooklyn.
Really?
Yellow cabs are Manhattan, green cabs are Brooklyn.
Oh, that's
and it was like
awesome.
the detail that they have in this. Like, I remember like trying to look for locations and then remembering that it's an animated movie.
Right.
But like they do it so well that in this city everything is so realistic.
And Miles is also mad proud to be from Brooklyn. Like, he's constantly throwing out Brooklyn. Like, when Uncle Aaron takes him to that spot for the first time, he's like, Brooklyn!
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, throwing Biggie up in the background. Like,
Yeah,
it's
but I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, Brooklyn does have like its own identity, and it actually makes sense for like the Miles character. But to see New York done in that way, there's so many times where like New York is done, and you ask yourself who goes from here to there? Like, there's no real respect given to the location. And in this movie, you could tell that whoever did this absolutely understood and loved Brooklyn.
Well, it's a thing that Chris and I bring up constantly with film, in that you don't have to make it to be fair, this is like a global destruction kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you don't need your fucking giant blue light in the sky that's going to destroy New York. It doesn't have to be that generic every time. You can tell these small stories and keep them in what's the word when you're writing a TV script and you stay in one location? Bottle episode. You can keep it in a bottle, and it still works so well. I mean, Ant-Man 1 did that very well, where there was no global threat.
Yeah.
And then this.
Well, I think if you make characters that the audience cares about, and you make damage to a danger to those characters, then it'll be a good film. Like, that's just make characters that are
you
relatable.
as the audience member still feel the same amount of threat and danger when it's one character you care about as opposed to an entire city. Like, I don't fucking care about cities blowing up. I'm so desensitized to seeing cities blow up that like I don't feel it anymore.
That desensitized they even hit on in the movie, which I love. It's when Peter B. Parker is like, they're infiltrating the office, and he's just like, it's always the end of the world. Look, I would guarantee you he's gonna be like, you have 24 hours.
24 hours.
You have 24 hours. See, I told you. And it's just like, it's like this hitting on the nose of, as you said, both being desensitized to like, oh, it's always the end of the world, but also we've all seen these superhero movies where like everything's always at stake. There's always a clock.
And to that point, the way that this movie makes it not that is by making the central hero and villain's main goal be family. So you have Miles saying, like, the first thing Spider-Man says to Miles is, hey, you need to do this, otherwise your family, everyone you care about, is going to go away. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have Kingpin, who he's doing all of this to try to bring his family back. So even the villain is sympathetic. So you're like, I can understand wanting to see your family again that you've lost. And Miles, I want to keep the family that I have. So it's like two sides of the same coin, but it makes it so that both characters have something that you can relate to, and you're like, I would fight for that as well, possibly.
Here's an alternate ending that I would have really loved to see of the movie, where Fisk does get all of the other versions of his wife and son back, and then the post-credit scene is them all bickering of like, who's the wife. Like, and they're all just like being like super backstabby and fake happy to each other.
Do you like to see like what is it? I'm thinking of like a Three's Company type thing.
I'm thinking more like Desperate Housewives.
Okay,
Well,
yeah.
and it also kind of has that like Aladdin Jafar, like be careful what you wish for kind of thing. Like this could end up being really bad.
Well, I think when I watched it this time, and I don't know if like maybe there were tricks being played on my eyes, but I think there are different versions of that family. Like I think I saw
there
like
are. Yeah.
a blonde version. And it's like, oh wow, it's really, they really are. They never lose sight that this is a multi-dimensional grab. So it's like you're not getting this mother and daughter from another one that he's trying to pull forward, and that's it's like you're trying to pull multiples.
Yeah, it's not
and you're
the
just
same.
touching
It's
on.
not his exact same wife and child he's getting back. It's another version of them.
And I think
on
that's-
that point, I am very sad we did not get a pig version.
Yes.
Although technically it wouldn't be it would be a spider version because
Yeah,
Spider
yeah.
Ham was a spider bitten by a radioactive pig.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very important point that needs to be brought up.
To this point, and I was really hoping that you guys would be able to help me out with this because I know Spider-Man in the sense that I've seen the Sam Raimi films. I saw Avengers. Like I've seen that stuff, a little bit of the animated series from the 90s. But there was a lot of questions I had as far as like this spider that bites Miles. Is this the same spider that bites Peter A. Parker? Is this a different spider? What is this?
A different one. It's like
think-
go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a different one. I listened to an interview with Lord and Miller, the Empire podcast. They do like their spoiler specials and always bring in creatives. They interview them, and they were saying that is a different one. And I think that actually came from a different universe too.
Oh, did it?
Because what I noticed the second time around is that when we first see the spider, it glitches, so it doesn't
right.
belong there
Oh, wow.
either. So now I think Peter A. Parker, as we'll call him, I think he was bit by an Alchemax spider. I think they all were, but I think that one came from somewhere else, which also explains why Miles has different powers than in the other Spider-Man we see. Because like whatever universe that one came from has like the invisibility and has the the venom touch, the venom
electricity
shock or
or
whatever.
What was interesting about that scene, which again, talking about suppressing expectations, is it's always a big moment when Spider-Man is bit. And for him, it's like he's bit and like there's like this huge thing and Miles just like like, he just
Knocks it
like
up.
taps it and he like goes about his life. You know, it's like what was usually like this moment and it's like he's changed and it was just like
Yeah,
whatever.
You know what I call on my second viewing is that Uncle Aaron probably knew of that place because of what was
No,
going
no,
on.
absolutely.
right?
He says
Yeah.
he says I did a job.
I did an engineering job. Yeah,
here.
exactly.
And so again, talking about it, it's beautiful because we also see. For me, it's always interesting to see certain things, certain representation. Uncle Aaron is a genius. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you kind of write him off as someone who's probably like a drug dealer or something like that when you first see him, because like he has his cell phone, he's like, I gotta go, and it's like all these things. But when you really find out what he's doing, he's an engineering or a technical genius.
Yeah.
He has like this other part of him that you just didn't give credit to, and I think again setting you up for certain expectations and then changing them.
What are his abilities, the Prowler? That was another question I had.
I don't know. I don't really know that much about that character. So I knew going in that Miles' uncle was a villain. I knew that. I was waiting for that reveal. I don't know if you guys knew that going in.
I did not know that.
Okay,
So
so
for me,
it was like a
huge
genuine twist.
surprise.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if he actually has powers. I think he, to CJ's point, he just built that suit. I think that's him just building
So like
it.
an Iron Man type of...
Yeah, so I think
yeah.
it has probably some sort of energy source, and I think like it allows him to like leap, and the boots can do something. But yeah, I think it's all mechanical. I don't think he has any inherent abilities.
Now this Kingpin, no supernatural abilities, but at one
No.
point he catches a car. So super strength.
I'm chalking that up to them being at the focus point of the dimension hopping, and like I think at that point kind of gravity and physics are a little bit skewed.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to chalk that up to. 'Cause I think
like
he is
a
super
train
strong.
runs into them and they're just like, yeah. So
Well,
I
also, he kills Peter A. Parker with just like a fist punch. So that's why I was kind of wondering if he had super strength at all.
I don't think
No, they never. He's kind of like the Lex Luthor effect, where he's just a guy who's very, very strong. where
He's the Suge Knight of.
yes, he exactly
joke,
is. Yes,
but he's actually supposed to be the Suge Knight. So
yeah.
kind of
Have you guys played the Spider-Man game yet?
No.
The PS4 game. That's another one that I wanted to bring up, where they just completely jump over the origin story. You jump in that game where you've been Spider-Man for years, where like it's already you're kind of the Peter B. Parker Spider-Man, where you're at the stage where it's like ruining your relationship with Mary Jane.
Serious stuff to throw in the game.
Yeah. Is it ice or is it bread? I think it's bread, where it's just like that little scene where he's just like, I should have always tried to give you bread.
Yeah,
She's like, what?
What are you talking about? Yeah. But yeah, in the game, wait, I forgot where I was going with this. What were we talking about a second ago? No super. Yeah, so Kingpin, yeah, they usually portray him as just kind of this kind of hulking figure. Yeah, yeah, just the Suge Knight, this hulking figure that is just kind of a
Connected.
Did you see the Ben Affleck Daredevil?
Yes, I did.
So that's kind of the same way.
Okay.
Where he was played by the late
Michael
great
Clark Duncan.
Yeah. Where he can go toe to toe with these amazing people because he's just
based on brute strength.
Yeah, he's just like peak human strength.
Okay. Now I had a question for you guys as well. The bullet that kills Uncle Aaron, was it meant for Miles or was it meant to punish a disobedient Aaron?
The latter. I think, yeah, he was aiming for Aaron, yeah.
He's here to send a message.
Absolutely. But no, that's what I loved about it. Like, I think what makes
Shot on the strip.
Kingpin, such a good villain is that he has this very business-like, no nonsense. Like, it's like no, when I say 24 hours, I like, and other people say that, I mean it. And it's like kill this dude. Oh, you won't? Well, then I'll get rid of you, and then we're still gonna move on. Even in Daredevil, his ruthlessness is what makes him a true villain. It's not like his ultimate goal or anything like that.
Sure.
I also just love how many Spider-Man villains they crammed in here because you get
exactly 6.
That's right. It is. Yeah, it's 6 because it's
Sinister 6.
Yeah, because it's Green Goblin. So Norman Osborn's Green Goblin, and then Kingpin, Doc Ock, Scorpion, Tombstone, Prowler. Yeah, 6. There you go. Yeah. That's amazing. That's so good. I mean, again, to your point, Cameron, about how it takes its audience seriously. That like you don't need to explain everything. We just know all these people exist. You get the basic concept of all of it, and just go and have fun with it.
It kind of takes the same approach that the Batman Lego movie did, of just kind of like, we all know this, so we're just going to make a joke of it.
Yeah.
But through those jokes, they're almost like they're giving you I like clever exposition, I think, through the jokes.
Absolutely. Well, I just think about Infinity War and how same thing. Infinity War was like, whether you know the history or not, this stuff has been out there. You had a chance. So if you came here,
you had your turn.
Yeah. If you came here to watch this movie, we're assuming it's because you have some knowledge. And even if you don't have direct knowledge of what's going on, you're smart enough to get the
Well, in
premise.
Infinity War, I just kind of realized this a few days ago. They introduced the characters in order of like not really most popular, but like ones that people would recognize first.
Okay, nice.
Yes, like everyone knows Iron Man in that film. Everyone, like through Iron Man, they kind of know Doctor Strange because Benedict Cumberbatch is very big. And then we see Thor is next, and then Hulk is next. And like, okay, fans, even if you don't know the movies, you know these people just because you've lived on Earth.
And Ant-Man and Hawkeye just are nowhere around. Because
exactly, yeah. I think the last ones they introduce are like Vision and I guess Cap, but that's because it was supposed to be a secret.
Yeah,
is Vision and Scarlet Witch because they're the ones that people don't like unless you know the movies. You don't really know these people.
Absolutely.
I would argue, and obviously Infinity War has a much bigger cast, but I would argue that Spider-Verse does a much better job of juggling multiple characters that you kind of care about. I walked into an Infinity War not having seen some Marvel movies, but I was just like, I don't care about this character. If I was just watching this movie, I wouldn't care about Chris Pratt's character. I wouldn't care about some of these other characters just based on this if I had seen it blind. Whereas with Spider-Man and Spider-Verse, I was able to attach myself to some of these characters like, Spider-Ham without having been given a ton of screen time.
Well, I think it's interesting because even if we go to Kingpin, his story, like his motivation, as one of you had pointed out earlier, it's so concise. It's like, I think it takes less than 30 seconds for them to give you everything you need.
If you like zone out for a minute, you miss his backstory.
Absolutely.
And that really says a lot, because it's almost punishing viewers for not paying attention.
Which I like. I think we're moving towards that just in television and movies. I think, honestly, I was just talking to someone about Bandersnatch, the new Netflix movie, because it's a new way of Netflix to be like, we're not in the background anymore. You need to pay attention, or else you will miss out on the whole purpose of this experience. And I think that's kind of like where we're getting at. It's just like, we consume so many things, and there's so much media out there.
The bubble is so big now that you're on board or you're not.
Yeah.
So
And also
pick a side.
and also just for filmmakers to understand that people traditionally will YouTube and Google what they're about to see before they go see it. So like the education is there if you want it. There's no reason to explain all of this, but Spider-Verse, I have to say, does explain it in a very concise, clear way that makes you care about the characters.
Mm-hmm. I do want to talk for a brief second about the side three spiders, because we haven't really given a lot of talk to Ham, Noir, and Penny. One of the things that I love from an animation standpoint is all three of them were animated completely differently from the rest of the cast, and I thought that was so awesome and fascinating to see. Where Noir, everything was in black and white, but he always had. They make a joke about it where I go wherever I go, the wind follows. But that is literally there every time you see him. You might not notice it, but his trench coat is always flowing. Penny Parker they animate in a much more anime style, which I always love to see. I'm a huge anime nerd. For anyone that listens to our podcast, knows. And Spider-Ham is very, very traditional animation based on fucking Tex Avery, the king. The crowned king of like animation slapstick comedy, like all of Hanna-Barbera learned from all of Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes learned from Tex Avery, and it's just you see it in the trailer. There's the one moment where Spider-Ham kind of comes in to shake his hand, and he does this little dip, and it's something that like animation nerds fucking go crazy over. Where it's the full body follow through that you don't see outside of Looney Tunes, and that like. It made me go crazy when I saw it in trailers and in theaters. I love it.
Well, like Spider-Ham even makes a joke about it, and he's like, "What? You have a problem with cartoons?" And it's like kind of pointing at the audience a little bit. It's like, "Oh, you didn't think this would like have the same sort of impact or be as like fantastic as something like Infinity War?" Like, no, like. I think the reason this movie works is that it embraces everything, right? So it embraces the fact that it's animation, it embraces its blackness. It's just like, why beat around the bush? We know what we're going to do. We know we are. It's a full-on superhero movie. Make it about superheroes. Let's put them in the big, bright, crazy costumes.
I was just going to say, I did listen to your guys' podcast you did on Mary Poppins
sorry.
recently. And what you guys talked about of seeing 2D animation on screen and that feeling of just like, wow, it's so good to see this again. That's how I felt with Spider-Ham too, and with Mary Poppins as well. But with Spider-Ham, I was just like, I was sad that this was lost from culture for a while. This type of humor, this type of entertainment, that this isn't readily available, and it's nice to see it getting some kind of spotlight.
Well, and it was so smart about how it addressed it, right? Like, it brought in the tropes. Like, he drops an anvil on someone's head. And the best part is that it comes out of nowhere. Like, where'd this anvil come from? And then he just, like, kind of waddles onto screen. Like, oh, right, we have a full-on, like, Looney Tunes character here. And then the mallet.
Oh, yeah, well, the mallet, and then also...
It'll always fit in your pocket. It's...
When Spider-Ham leaves, one of the last like things that happens is the anvil's still there, and it's again, it's this acknowledgement of no, we brought this into the universe, and it doesn't just disappear; it's here now. And as you said, taking ownership of the decisions you made, and I loved that anvil. It's so stupid. I grew up watching Tex Avery.
They're amazing. They're
and
so good.
So anytime someone brings in an anvil and they use it wisely, I'm blown away.
Yeah, they found a fresh way to do those like really well-trod jokes.
So something you brought up that I wanted to bring up was bring back was the costume and the fact that Miles spends the majority of the movie in this purchased costume. We have to talk about the moment he gets the costume, but also just the idea that he spends most of the time, and they even make fun of him. I forgot who does it. He's like, "What kind of superhero wears his own merch?" or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I actually had a question about that because when he goes to put on the costume, the same thing that happens when he goes to put on his pants after he gets bitten. He's taller. That wasn't. I guess I wanted to understand why he got taller from a spider bite.
I'm not sure why he got taller. Maybe it did accelerate puberty a little bit. I mean, because in the Raimi film, all of a sudden Tobey Maguire wakes up and he's yoked as fuck, and he can see without his glasses and stuff. I guess the idea is it just makes you a slightly. Yeah, a better version of yourself, a more a prime specimen version. So I think that's what happened there. Just accelerated his aging.
No, I keep laughing at because I remember when Miles just kept being like, "It's just puberty."
It's just puberty. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Everyone's just like, "What's going on?" He's like, "No, it's just puberty." And
and then Gwen, while he's yelling, he's like, "I don't think you know what puberty is."
Yeah, you know what that means. Yeah.
About the costume, I also love that he was in Jordans for a majority of the movie. I just thought that was a really great touch.
It's a fashion choice.
Yeah. Because everyone. Well, I love that. That's another thing where people are constantly telling him, "Hey, your shoes are untied."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, it's a choice. I'm doing this on purpose." But the first time we see him try to run and do anything, he trips over his shoelaces. And then, again, it's this universe acknowledges everything that it set up.
I think they made custom SpiderVerse Jordans, right?
I would actually, I can't
awesome.
wait for Halloween next year to rock the SpiderVerse costume with the Jordans and the hoodie. I just think it's such a cool look.
I think that's been one of the best things about what's been happening in terms of huge summer blockbusters and pop culture is, we were talking about earlier, is now people who didn't have those heroes before have them. To this day, if I'm at Disneyland, I see little girls dressed up as Ray or Captain Phasma or something. It makes us so happy. And now people have Miles, they have Black Panther, and they have Wonder Woman. It's just thank God.
Aquaman.
But Aquaman, yeah.
But even
I know those kids with epic beards finally have a hero to dress up as.
They have someone to look up to.
The notorious 13-year-olds with the heavy beard.
Yeah, it's going to look great.
Where was their costume? No, it's actually, what I thought was interesting is this movie alone gives you so many Spider-Man.
All of them.
You can have, your entire family can go as a different Spider-Man. And
that is 100% going to be the group costumes at Halloween.
It's going to be
the Spider-Verse, guys.
Comic-Con. Yeah, because I always can tell who's going to be big by what's the Comic-Con costume.
Yeah.
But that whole save it for Comic-Con joke that they have in
what's Comic-Con?
Yeah. I forgot what it was, but he goes save it for Comic-Con, and it's just how many Spider-Man are there? Is what he says.
Here's another question I have, and again, there's just very mild understanding of Spider-Man's universe. Did comics coexist with Peter Parker as Spider-Man the way they do with Miles, to the point where he was being Spider-Man, but there was also comics of Spider-Man that existed in the same world?
So that was actually a very fun, very small Easter egg, where there's another Spider-Man that you said the name of, and I forgot. It's Todd something? Ben Reilly. That's the Spider-Man in the comics in that movie.
Oh,
so it's not when because you see the origin story in the comic, and instead of it being Peter, it's Ben.
Yeah, so I only know a bit about this. I never read them, but I think it was the late 80s maybe. There was a whole thing called the Spider-Man Clone Saga, and basically this guy named Ben Reilly shows up and he says, "Oh, I'm the original Spider-Man. You, Peter Parker, are actually clone of me." And so Peter Parker stops being Spider-Man for a while, and Ben Reilly takes it over. I mean, this is the same thing that was happening with Batman at the same time. They break his back, and then all of a sudden now it's John Paul Valley as Azrael comes in. What?
There's 4 Batman.
There's 4 Batman. Yeah, there's so many Batman.
Yeah, when Superman died, we had a lot of
yeah, exactly. The 4 Superman come in. It's kind of the same concept, but basically,
which we would not have gotten Shaquille O'Neal Steel from without. Are you guys not familiar with Steel?
I know of it. I saw it as a kid. I have not revisited it in a long time. I believe
it's only available on VHS.
I'm sure it is, but that's the only way to watch it. The best way to watch it. I've always loved Steel, though. That's a fantastic character. But yeah, so in Spider-Verse, the comics, I guess it's someone made stories about Spider-Man, but it's just not referred to as Peter Parker. So someone just made those comics and called him Ben Reilly instead.
So I know you guys have a hard out of this. I want to try and wrap it up really quick, and I want to ask a very open-ended question for the last couple minutes. What do you want to see come out of this movie now? It's like we have this amazing movie, everyone's loving it, it's making decent amount of money. Where do you want to see film culture go from here?
I'll start. I was actually really hoping that the final credits sequence would be Miles crossing universes into the current MCU. Somehow, some way, and getting Miles like a live action interpretation, like the popularity of him somehow merging in, because you have Donald Glover as Uncle Aaron in the MCU already. So I just thought that would have been an interesting twist, and obviously that's still a possibility. But just seeing, I feel like Miles in its conception got kind of like the backdoor treatment of like, let's just give it an animated film, but not understanding how great this character was. So maybe some kind of live action interpretation I would like to see. If not that, I would love to see more unique ways to do animation going forward, separate from Spider-Man. Just the way this was done as an animated film was gorgeous, and I would love to see more of that.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say that what I would like to see is this embracing of diversity and understanding that diversity isn't just like a thing to get people in. It's not like 3D. It's like, and we did it as a black cast. It's like, what would that be like? Which, to be fair, I kind of feel is being done in some ways with certain movies. They're like remaking it, but they're like, but what if a black woman was, instead of
Are you thinking of the remake of What Women Want, called What Men Want?
Exactly.
I was thinking of the remake of Big called Little.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I just watched the trailer for that.
Exactly. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm going to go see Little.
Yeah, I love all the actors in that movie. Like, they're all
But
hilarious.
the difference is, I would love this idea of like taking these characters who are maybe in this universe or maybe doing their own, but it's a different story and it's completely embracing.
Yeah, we don't need the Wiz. We don't need just a black interpretation of the same story. We need just unique stories. And I feel like we got a very, especially amongst the brother and the dad, Uncle Aaron and Miles' father, I just felt like there was a lot of really unique storylines that were grabbed you that maybe wouldn't exist otherwise.
Absolutely. So I think that's really good because it increases the representation, as we talked about.
Which
And then,
amazing black role models in that movie with his dad. Like, fantastic.
Though that's what I talked about.
representation.
Uncle Aaron he's a smart guy. I mean, like, he's not someone who we, but also at the end of the day, he chooses family overall, like at the very end.
It's an act of heroism that
his father
cost his
is
life.
a cop. Jefferson's a cop, and then his mother is a nurse. So it's like these are people who have jobs that are contributing. You know what I mean?
Jefferson gives a beautiful monologue to Miles when he's tied up in the room.
Oh my
too.
God, yeah.
Oh
Another,
my God.
another emotional
Again,
gut punch scene.
Just like such a moment. But then also, as TC had said, taking chances, like the animation in the animation in this, I cannot say enough.
So fun little fact about this. I don't know if you guys saw this in your research. They went, instead of going to a film studio, they went to a design team to get the look of this film. It took them a year to get 10 seconds of this kind of animation done.
Oh, wow.
So the film took a little over 2 years to make. And so half of that time was for 10 seconds and just to get this specific look nailed.
But
and
they
like
nailed
that,
it.
yeah, exactly. Like that shows if you put in the time and effort, and if you give the right people the creative freedom that they need, you can come out with just the most unique.
A Golden Globe.
Yeah, you can come out with a Globe. You can beat Disney.
Yeah.
In the year where they had the second highest grossing animated film of all time.
Absolutely.
Like you can knock that out of the park.
And with like a month left, too. It's like you
just slipped in there at the
premiered-
end.
Yeah, but like, so sorry. Even talking about that style, I think what is interesting is it's such a love note, as we were talking about, to comics, and it's such a love note to the material. And I think that's what we're seeing is movies that understand the value of whatever they're acknowledging. So like the value of comic books, the value of cartoons, the value of these different stories. I think it's really, really important.
Well, yeah, even right at the top, before the movie even starts, you get approved by the comics code.
That's what I was gonna say.
The second you get in, you're like, oh, this is a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is great.
Absolutely.
We're not going to see Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. Like,
No, yeah, we're
getting-
going to do these things authentically. And I guess for me, what I'm looking forward to, kind of, CJ, along your point, is that diversity does not mean niche,
Yes.
right? And I think we were seeing that a lot this year. We saw with SpiderVerse, saw Black Panther. I'm going to count Love, Simon. Just
Yeah.
for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
for me
Yeah,
personally
100%.
being,
You're right,
Yeah,
accurate.
for personally being gay, it's like, oh right, this is just like a normal. Wait, what? Shocking. Sorry, I'm just telling you now, Cameron. No, but like it's.
We live in a post-Hamilton world, guys.
Exactly right, and it's.
I'm not throwing away my shot.
Damn it, Cameron. You know, it was nice to watch a lot of movies that were designed for mass appeal, and in doing so, their specificity meant that it had a greater emotional impact.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, all three of those movies were movies that like gave me an emotional gut punch because it's very specific, but in so you can always find something to connect to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it doesn't just have to be how they look. For me, that wasn't what mattered there. It was like, oh, right, it's a human story. And also it
humans
means
are
that someone
universal.
else who didn't ever get to see themselves on screens got to.
Absolutely.
And I was still able to enjoy it, guys. Crazy thought. But now someone else got to appreciate it that much more, and that's what matters.
I would really hate for us to end this podcast without touching on Stan Lee's cameo.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let Cameron
Yeah, yeah,
answer the
sorry,
question
sorry,
first. and then
Oh,
let's get back to that.
oh gosh, I didn't have an answer to that. That was a
Oh,
question for you all.
so you just set it up.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping I could fall into the background.
I do want to throw in this my one last idea of post credit scene. If they could have shoehorned in one more, I would have loved after all of this had happened if it was just 10 seconds where Miles went back and his dad was watching over him as he peeled off all of his stickers.
Yeah,
Because they set that up, and I wanted like after he becomes this hero, he still has
Yeah.
to do the work.
well, I mean, like they do kind of hint at that when he goes, "I put a sticker where my father won't
Yep.
be able to tell
Yeah,
me to take
yeah,
it
yeah.
down." So like they do acknowledge that, but you're right. I definitely want that scene now of just Miles going around taking off all the little.
I do want to say too that I did see an article saying that there's some talks about creating a Spider-Verse television series, so we might dive
Yeah.
a little further into that world.
I heard something about a TV series. There's talks about a sequel that would focus on Miles and Gwen. There's talk about a spin-off that would be Gwen plus then two other Spider-Women, one called Silk and the one, her name is Jessica Drew. Down for all of that.
Yeah.
Well, and then also, you know, there's the potential of the post-credit sting with Spider-Man
Yeah.
2099, which,
Yeah.
again, talking about diversity, that is a character who is both Hispanic and Irish. His name
Yeah.
is Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, let's see more of him, too.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. And again, when I saw that after credit scene, I was like, they are trying. If you haven't gotten the point, anyone,
anyone could do it.
This is like if we haven't let you know by now, there is no limitations to who you can be. But also, I kind of wanted on that scene. I wanted to bring up. We've talked about a little bit how this movie was meta, but I also love the merging of not only previous knowledge of Spider-Man, but the culture of Spider-Man, i.e., memes, meme culture, and everything.
the,
Like,
Spider-Man
the
pointing.
Christmas songs.
The Christmas songs.
There's so much that it really showed, like as you pointed out, what it's like to have a franchise or a brand and the different ways that gets influenced. And I loved that they did like the Spider-Man meme or like the Office joke, and like there's just so much that Spider-Man has gotten bigger than just the movies themselves, and they still acknowledge that within this movie.
Yeah, and the fact that some of the movies have gotten kind of crazy too, and they throw that in there,
Yeah.
just totally comfortable with it, and also
Doing a
like
little dance.
always like subverting it too. It's like you asked the question earlier of, oh, is this the Tobey Maguire version? It's very similar, but they change things up. So like the upside down kiss, it's Mary Jane that's hanging upside down. It's like
Yeah.
when he's having lunch with her, and you can actually see a hint of Doc Ock in the background through the car.
Yeah.
Instead of it like crashing through, he just turns around and punches it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those sort of things. But you want to talk about like Stan Lee, and you know his whole message there is basically like, oh, you know, it'll fit eventually.
Yeah, it always fits.
And how
eventually.
that's I mean, I think it has even greater impact because he did pass away.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's almost kind of like if they have any more, I kind of want them to just cut it. Like, can we just have that be the final one? Because a lot of them get cheesy. And that was
they
really
said, I think
sweet.
this is the last voiceover version that they had, and they said that once he died, they actually extended his scene a little bit longer to add a little bit more weight to it, because that it's not only is it his final one, but like the message that he's saying. Again, Stan Lee, to just give Stan Lee credit, he is responsible for the world actually opening up their eyes and understanding. You know, he told stories of racism or integration or homophobia through these characters, through the X-Men, through Spider-Man, through different ways. And again, so many people were able to connect and learn lessons. And so to have his final voiceover, at least appearance, being something so integral, which is anyone can be the hero, anyone can wear this suit. It's about owning up to the responsibility of it. I think was just absolutely beautiful, and then to do so and then hit it with a joke, which is so Stanley.
Yeah, I that's probably his best, or certainly one of his best cameos across the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
All right. So anyone else? We got to wrap this up.
No, I think we can wrap it up.
All right. So, I mean, pretty much, you guys, is there anything, to take your words, is there anything you want to plug? Or is there anything that...
I don't know if I have anything to plug. Yeah, but to plug necessarily, I guess we can plug ourselves, if you'll forget the expression. Yeah, so
you did tell us you were gay earlier.
That's true. Yeah. Hey, why not? I mean, where do you think bat plugs came from? We actually had someone on Twitter recently ask us, is that just a joke off butt plugs? I'm like, yes, we are children. We did that. But yeah, I mean, so our podcast, Timm Talk, is Tim with 2 M's. It's all about basically 20, 25-year-old DC Comics cartoons. But we talk about a lot of other stuff along the way, too. Like you said, we just did an episode of Mary Poppins. We do all kinds of stuff. And you can find us on iTunes and Spotify. And then if you want to subscribe, and then if you want to just follow our accounts, we're at TimmTalkPod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. You can tell I've recited this a lot. I'm personally at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram. And then I have another podcast, because, you need more of them always, called Gay It Forward, where I'm being slowly taught how to be a better gay by our friend Jonathan. And we have a few episodes out on that.
Most people don't know. It does come with lessons.
It does. Yeah, exactly. No one gave me the goddamn manual.
Yours didn't come?
No, it never showed up.
You got to switch your address.
I think that's what it was. It went to the wrong address. It was a whole problem.
You got to use the Amazon Prime. You got 2-day shipping.
Damn it. See, if someone gave me the manual, I'd know these things. But yeah, so we are Gay It Forward Pod on some of the things and Gay It Forward on other things. I forget that I don't actually recite that one at the end, but you'll find it out there. It's fun. So
for regular plugs, Young Justice Season 3 just started on DC Universe. It's fantastic. For anyone that loved the original franchise, it's just more of what you enjoy. I highly recommend, if you have DC Universe. I understand a lot of people don't. I also forget that it's only in America still, which is very dumb, but not my place to say. If you want to, I'm also part of Timm Talk, as we've said at the top and in the middle and now at the end. If you want to find my stuff, I do art. I'm an animator. If you want to see that stuff, you can find that on my art page, Cameron.Dexter on Instagram, and only Instagram, because I only care about Instagram. And if you want to see my face, it's at Cameron Dexter _adventures. That one. Right? Yeah.
She did it, yes.
All right. So I'll wrap us up by saying thank you for listening to Bro Meets World. Remember, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Pod, iTunes, Stitcher, all of the places. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and all of the places at Bro Meets World, or email us at bromeetsworld@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ, Tonathy.
You can find me on Instagram at @braverme, at .braver.me. You can also find me in theaters next week, probably being disappointed by Glass.
Hey, I have faith, but you know what? I think that's misplaced. So, you know what?
to steal
leap of faith.
Leap of faith, yes. Leap of faith. Have a leap of faith. Maybe it'll be okay.
I'm hoping so. I really am.
To steal from their podcast, I love every day is Christmas Eve when it comes to movies. You don't know what you're going to get.
Ooh, who said that?
It's the Empire podcast.
Oh, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But sometimes the gift is socks. So be prepared.
Okay. Thank you guys. Yeah, I mean, they could be nice socks, as Cameron just pointed out.
I now love socks as a gift.
I've
as an
gotten
adult.
a variety of socks from M. Night Shyamalan, so I'm waiting.
All right, is that it? Are you good?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, later, bros.
Later, bruh.